You are listening to Heart Over Ego Radio. We are a network of shows with a lineup that's sure to raise your vibrations and guide you into your best life. Tune in on Sundays to Everyday Psychic Radio. On Mondays, it's the Alchemy Sisters. Tuesdays, it's Radical Spirituality. On Wednesdays, it's All for One is Love. And on Fridays, take a listen to Rain Radio. Amazing shows produced just for you 5 days a week, only on Blog Talk Radio. This is a Heart Over Ego Radio production.
Hi, and welcome to Rain Radio, where we have juicy conversations that lead to powerful transformation. We are your hosts. I'm Lila Zage.
And I'm Naomi Calderon. And today we're going to be talking about the keys to getting outside of your comfort zone. So grab your journal, your drink, pop on that crown, and let's chat. Morning, Lila.
Good morning.
What are you drinking? I know, again? Twice in one day. It's a very lucky thing when you have a Lila in your life.
Aw, ditto. I'm not drinking anything. As I was doing the intro, I was like, where's my beverage? It's because I have lemonade leftovers in my mouth because I took my minerals in lemonade because that's how we get them into our faces without dying. So I have lemonade aftertaste. That's what I'm drinking at the moment.
Lemonade. So funny. Lemonade's such a summer drink to me.
It is, unless you were taking minerals, in which case 2 ounces of lemonade in the winter it works.
Well, I realized the other day as I was making some, I didn't have ginger, so I was just making honey lemon tea. Mm-hmm. And I looked at Bear and I said, this is really just hot lemonade. Mm-hmm. Never had really dawned on me before. But it's like, okay, so maybe lemonade can be a summer and winter drink. It just depends if you're drinking it hot or cold, what you call it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically.
So, all right, so you've got leftover lemonade taste. I'm actually drinking a ginger turmeric licorice Trader Joe's, which I have become hooked on.
I'm going to have to try that.
I love it.
My brain is very perplexed. So I'm just going to give it to my mouth and see what my mouth thinks.
Well, I know you like golden milk.
I do.
So I think you will like this because that's kind of the flavor is reminiscent of it without it being creamy like the golden milk is. Okay. But that's what the flavor is reminiscent of to me. So I think you'd like it. And yes, Trader Joe's, if you'd like to give me your supply, for pitching it, I'd be open to receiving that.
We're always open for sponsorship, even in the form of free product.
That's right. That's right.
That is something that is in my comfort zone.
There you go. Well, and speaking of that, since last week, for those of you who listened to last week's episode, and if you didn't, you might want to go tune in. We were talking about what do you do when you don't even have a comfort zone, when you're so freaked out and stressed out in life that nothing is comfortable, everything is fear-based, everything is riddled with anxiety and survival. And so we talked about creating a comfort zone if that's the place you're in. So you might want to go back and listen to that. But for most of us who can, or maybe not most of us, but for those of us who can identify our comfort zone, this is what's comfortable for me. These are the things that are comfortable. This is what I'm comfortable doing, where I'm comfortable going, how visible I'm comfortable being, whatever that is. For those of us who have that, today we want to take the conversation further and talk about keys and tools to help you get outside your comfort zone. But my question that came up was, why do I even want to get outside of this comfort zone? Because this is comfortable.
And what's your answer?
day I don't. You know, have you ever had those days where it's like, no, it's like the comfort zone feels like your favorite blanket. You know, you're all toasty and warm and safe, and you can look outside the winter at the cold, blustery, scary, horrible stuff. You know?
like the fluffy white stuff that was on my car when I was up this morning.
Oh, thank the sweet baby Jesus, I don't have any of that. And yes, but why do I want to get outside this cocoon? So what comes up for me is life gets stagnant otherwise. That's really the first thing that comes up is life gets stagnant. I don't want the same old, same old. And frankly, if I'm unwilling to get outside my comfort zone, I'm going to end up with same old, same old. 10 years from now, I'm going to be looking back on my life, and it's going to look a lot like right now, which my life is great, so that's not a bad thing. But it seems kind of boring. To think of doing this the same way for 10 years. I got shit I want to go do. I got things I want to experience. Some of them are a little outside my comfort zone. Some of them are just new things that don't really scare me. Some, they kind of scare me a little bit.
I want to come back to those things.
Okay. So one of the things that comes up, and for those people who have jobs, like my sister is this type of person, so please know if this is what is right for you, it's perfect. It is not right for me. I could never have been at a company and gone for the damn gold watch, as one of my friends called it. She worked at the company she was at. I happened to be a contractor there at the time. This has been years ago. Okay, a couple of decades ago. And she'd been there long enough. She's like, yeah, I got the damn gold watch. And I think she'd been there like 20 or 25 years. I could not imagine that. I couldn't imagine being at the same. I think the longest I was ever with one company, and the part of me that grew up with the mother that I grew up with cringes at this, I think the longest I was at any one company was 4 years. Other than my very own company.
Yeah. Same.
My mom's generation, you got a job and you stayed there. You know?
Forever.
Absolutely. You went for the damn gold watch.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem. Like I said, my sister is very much like that. She is only a couple years older than I am. And while I look 30, I'm actually 51. She is in a job that she wants to be in, not just the career or the occupation, but the job, the company, that till she retires or dies. And I'm like, wow. It's awesome. I simply have a hard time relating to that. Now, there are some companies you could step outside your comfort zone and move up and move up and move up. I know one woman I worked with who did that, and it took a lot for her. It was stepping outside her comfort zone to do that. So I realized you can work in a company or in a corporation in a more traditional employee type job and still step outside your comfort zone. So please, no, I'm not saying just because you work for a company and you're not an entrepreneur means you never step outside your comfort zone. No, I'm not saying that, because that's not true. For me, though, staying in the same company, in the same job for 20 years is like, no. And if I didn't step outside my comfort zone in my own business and in my own life, that's what it would feel like to me. Hope we didn't just lose 80 followers because I just offended them all.
You're a riot. I hope everybody understands that not everybody's the same. I mean, that's kind of the point of these conversations that we have. Everyone's different. What looks like success for one person is going to look like misery for someone else. I love organic, homegrown, free range. I lovingly murdered this chicken with my bare hands and then skinned it, and I loved it the whole time it lived, and here you go, this chicken full of love. But I don't want to be the person that grows the chicken. I wanted to give you money because you love growing chickens.
I thought you meant you actually did that, and I'm like, I wouldn't.
No.
I eat meat, but I would not have been able to eat
I would
that
be
chicken.
a vegetarian. I would have to be a vegetarian if I needed to murder a chicken. Like, I grew up on a farm. We had pigs. We planted vegetables. Lila today does not want to grow my own food. I don't want to grow my own vegetables. I don't want to grow my own creatures.
Veggies, yes. Creatures, no. Well, creatures,
I want
they just
to live
wouldn't
next
become
door
food.
to you.
Okay.
I want to live next door to you. I will come over occasionally and weed the garden with you. I will come pluck things. I will buy food from you. What I don't want to do is be 100% responsible for the survival of the food. We would be hungry, y'all. But my girl Jamie, who lives in Middle America, built her house with her bare hands. They raise their meat. They slaughter it themselves. If she sold things that were not rabbits, I would probably buy meat from her, but I don't eat bunnies. Not that I judge her from eating bunnies. It's just not a meat that I think. Great. It's just not a meat that thrills me. If she grew pigs, I would be buying bacon from her and pork chops without second thought.
I got to tell you, as a visual person, when you say grow pigs, I just see, in my mind, I see these plants with pigs instead of flowers on the end. It's really funny to be in my head right now. But I have to tell you, I have a tremendous amount of awe for your friend. I'm like, part of me says, I'd love to be her, and then it's like, oh, no.
No, I don't. I don't want to be her by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to buy food from her. So my point, and on the other end of the spectrum, I have a friend that wants to buy a private jet. I will go half on a private island with her, and I will pay for jet rides to and fro said private island, but I have no interest in owning a jet. That's just a degree of wealth that I'm not interested in. I want private jet money.
I just feel the maintenance of a jet. No, thanks.
I don't want it. And then I was listening to a podcast where she said that you have to have a different kind of jet for a different kind of travel if you're going to go to another country versus if you're just going to go across your own country. So she would rather just rent private jets. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Same.
Yep. I'm with you.
And so my rant is just to say that everybody's going to be different. Success is going to mean a different thing for every person.
And comfort zone.
And comfort zones are going to mean a different thing for every person. And for me, I don't ever think about getting outside of my comfort zone, actually. Which is funny that we're having this conversation. It's something that I think is a byproduct of my being constantly interested in growth. So I know that I want something that I don't currently have, and so that means that I have to be and do things that I'm not currently being and doing. And that's how I get out of my comfort zone. But I don't look at it as, I need to get out of my comfort zone.
Right. And I wish I could attribute it to whoever was the first person to really drill it home, but the whole do something today that scares you, that whole concept. And now I may not do that every single day because some days that's just not my focus necessarily. I really think of it as stepping outside my my comfort zone either. But when faced with things, like, it's funny, I will I will train and teach a group of people, large audiences, small audiences. I can stand in front of a group of 70 and talk with no problem. Whereas some people are like, oh my God, I can't even talk in front of 5, you know? So to me, that's not scary. That's not do something that scares you every day kind of stuff. Not talking to 1,000, it might, I don't know. Haven't talked to a group quite that large yet. Notice I say that. But send me out networking to introduce myself one-to-one with people. I find it tedious. I find it draining, which is really funny because locally I do a lot of networking. Most people wouldn't realize it. That for me, that's just like, oh, nails on a chalkboard, and a little bit scary. It's outside. I used to say it's outside my comfort zone. Now I wouldn't say it's outside my comfort zone. I just don't enjoy it a ton. Mm-hmm. So that tells me it's time to reframe it too. But initially, it was way outside my comfort zone. But I didn't say, I'm going to get outside my comfort zone and I'm going to start networking. No, it was just like, I need to network for my business. I'm going to go do it. I'm a little bit scared about this. Well, suck it up, pull up your panties, and let's go. So.
That's hilarious. Networking is a thing. Networking in groups, like formal networking, is a thing that's outside of my comfort zone. At the moment, I do it. Mm-hmm. But I do it lunches as of yet. And I'm good until it's elevator pitch time. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing this for months now, and I still stand up and go, it doesn't sound like that when it comes out of my mouth, but in my head and my heart's beating all fast and my armpits are slightly sweaty. Mm-hmm. I might barf. But growing my business is on the other side of it, so I'm sure there will come a time where I stand up and I don't buffer.
Right? Where it's just like, blah, 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 Lila, queen of the world, and chances are, yes. Because and I think when I ask the question, why do I even want to get outside of this cocoon, outside of this comfort zone, is because there's a whole nother level and a whole nother layer. And you said it beautifully. You're always wanting to grow and to expand both personally and professionally. But even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you aren't necessarily looking to climb a corporate ladder, even if you're in a job that you love and you don't expect to ever change from that job, that's great. You can still, do you want to grow personally? And I think one of the things that's important is giving yourself some kudos for comfort zones you've already stepped out of that you maybe didn't even realize.
Mm-hmm. Can you say more about that?
Well, certainly. Because if we weren't having this conversation, chances are in 3 months, 6 months, whatever, we'll just take a little trip down our timeline into the future where you do stand up and are just like, blah, 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 this is what I do, Lila, queen of the world. And it's no big deal for you to do that. It's easy. It doesn't matter if there's 20 people in the room, 70 people in the room, 700 people in the room. There you are. Bam! And it's simple. Mm-hmm. It's easy. There's no sweating, no shaking of the knees, no nothing. It's just another thing, another day. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, often it's become so normal at that point, we forget about the day that we stood there going, oh my God, my mouth just dried up, my knees are knocking, my mind went blank, and I'm supposed to be saying something? Shit! We forget that. Because it's become our norm to be comfortable, and so we forget to give ourselves kudos. We forget to celebrate that without being like, I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone and master my elevator pitch. We've stepped outside our comfort zone and become comfortable telling people about who we are and what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I see it with clients all the time. We forget to celebrate ourselves. So maybe if you're like, I don't know if I really step outside my comfort zone, I would encourage you to go back and look at the past 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever it is for you. Could be the last 3 weeks of the year. Who knows? Where have you been stepping outside of what's comfortable to push yourself, to grow, to experience new things? And how can you celebrate yourself? I think that's an important piece of this. I know that might not be a key to stepping outside of, but I think it's an important piece to remember along the way.
It is, and I definitely think we should have a whole conversation about celebrating ourselves and the importance of that.
Oh, yes.
Because I think it's something that we miss, and especially as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But in the effort of maintaining topic, we will not tangent too far in this conversation.
Yes, exactly.
So growth is the reason we step outside of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of gotten to that as a consensus.
Yeah. Growth.
How do we do that?
Etc. Well, how are you showing up at those networking events? That's something that's a little bit outside your comfort zone, and you're like, I'm just doing it. So
start doing brave things.
Mm-hmm. So did you have to do anything in particular to psych yourself up to go the first time? What got you to actually stop thinking about it and go to one?
I'm like, I'm not a normal person. Is this gonna be a response that anybody is going to associate with? It spoke to me. It's not the first time I've looked at a networking event. It's this group of women.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at a vendor event with my job, and I did my normal Lila thing of walking up to someone and asking them about their business and what they do. And in that conversation, I happened to mention a side hustle. And the person who runs the networking group said, you have to come talk to my group. And so I did.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, I thought, I liked these people. I think I'll come back. That was last summer.
So it was almost a backdoor showing upness. You weren't seeking a networking group necessarily.
No, even though I am aware that that is an ideal way to grow my business,
mm-hmm.
I was not out looking for a networking event or a networking
mm-hmm.
group.
And I know we had talked about networking groups in the past as a way to grow your business. So I wonder if unconsciously maybe you had lowered some resistance, some walls to that, and that may be part of what allowed you to see that as an opportunity.
Probably.
Yeah. But so sometimes we can backdoor things that are uncomfortable in a way that makes it more comfortable for us. Because once you're like, I like these ladies, I think I'm going to come back. Okay. Did it still seem like something outside your comfort zone to go back?
The events themselves are not outside of my comfort zone. It is the introduction,
mm-hmm.
this is who I am, this is what I do, this is my offer right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to be this is my offer. Sometimes it could be this is what my business requires.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ladies was doing a 5K with children to fight childhood obesity. And so she asked for donations towards the 5K. And that was her pitch that day. And so it doesn't have to be this is my service. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think 7 months later, and there's 8 chapters locally, and I visit a minimum of 2 a month. you would think that now when I stand up, especially in my chapter in my city, I know most of these women already. You would think when I stand up and say, I'm Lila, I'm a master energy healer, that right before I stand up, I don't feel like I'm going to barf.
So
yet.
here's a question to you.
I'm getting there.
Because I'd imagine there are some other people listening to this who can relate to that completely. So what could you do? What could you try? What would help make that become more the norm for you?
Good question. I will be looking at my thoughts, because as I was remembering the experience, as I was recounting it to you, I wondered what I'm thinking that I'm not aware that I'm thinking. Because what I now know about myself is I have tapes playing that I can't hear.
Yeah. Well, and we all do, right? Yeah,
I want to explain this for the listeners, because I know you know what I'm talking about, but they may not, and this example will be perfection. So I started a group experience called Magnetic Mornings this week. And if you had asked me beforehand if I was nervous, I would have said no. I have channeled healings before. I have channeled them in group experiences. I'm good.
She's really good at it.
Thank you. I enjoy it. It's a fun time, a party. You should come play. All kinds of great things. And so I would never tell you that I'm nervous, because I don't think that I'm nervous. Monday morning, my alarm went off, and I was having a dream that someone on the call said, I didn't like that at all. Which would never happen. This person might not have enjoyed the experience, and she might have told me, and it would have been very loving feedback that she gave me. It never would have been, I didn't like that at all. And so I woke up, and I went, I guess I'm nervous. But if I hadn't had that dream, I would not have known that I was nervous. And the same thing with the networking events. If I didn't get that I'm about to barf feeling right before I open my mouth to speak, I wouldn't know that I was nervous. Interesting time.
So, what are some things that come up as you're saying that? Yes, obviously uncovering what are those limiting beliefs that we have, those tapes that are playing in our unconscious that are driving our actions and our nerves and all of those things that are driving those thoughts that we may or may not be aware of. Getting to the root of those obviously is great. Sometimes there are in the moment things like something like that. What I would tell someone to do if you are having, in that instance where you're having to speak and you're nervous about speaking, one of the things I encourage people to do, and I taught a local group. I did a speakers series for people who are wanting to learn how to be better speakers. And one of the things that I encourage people to do, often we'll stand up and we just start. And it's like anytime you speak, really get grounded, like purposely plant your feet. Don't like stomp where everybody's going to see it, but purposely plant your feet. I encourage people to make sure your toes are pointing straight ahead. And there's a reason for that. Neurologically, it tells you, but also your audience, if they happen to be able to see your feet, if your feet are pointing out, or if they're pointing towards the door, if they're pointing out, what it says is you're uncertain about what direction you're going. If they're pointing towards the door, it tells people that you are ready to bolt. So there's all sorts of things. So if you plant your feet firmly and really get grounded, sink into your heels, really work to get connected to the earth. I realize most of us are speaking in rooms with concrete floors and whatnot, but really work to feel connected helps. Just take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and then start. The oxygen is going to help, and it helps just calm you neurologically a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you.
For some people, they like to have a talisman in their pocket that they can rub. Great. Do whatever works for you. That's the great thing, is whatever will bring you calm and peace in that moment, to take that step outside your comfort zone is perfect. Now, somebody's helping because I just heard, so really, take a big swig of whiskey. Okay, I'm not advocating drinking to step outside your comfort zone. I think we've all, a lot of us anyway, myself included, when we were in college, probably did a lot of that kind of stuff. Let's not go with liquid courage. Let's create the real thing.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Absolutely.
But so, how big are these leaps we should be taking outside our comfort zone, Lila?
Depends on what sort of leap are you taking, especially if you're learning how to swim for the first time.
Right. See, because I don't see speaking in front of people to be that big of a deal. So that, to me, that's not really outside your comfort zone.
Right. I think it depends on.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
I don't think that's outside your comfort zone.
Oh, other people's opinions? Yeah. Well, I mean, we glossed over that because it's really not that big of a deal for me, but there are some thoughts in the back of my head that are like, wait, we should be nervous here. So I'm like, okay, you've been acknowledged now. Time for the Lila show.
Right?
But no, stepping off into the deep end of the pool when I still haven't learned how to float, that's outside my comfort zone. My swim instructor didn't think so.
Dude, I'm a crawl down the steps kind of gal, and you want me to jump in that? Yeah. I'm the wade in the kiddie pool girl, and you want me jumping in the deep end? You nuts. So, did you do it anyway?
Sort of. So I did not go, oh, okay, I'm terrified, I'm just going to jump in the pool now.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, okay, I'm terrified. What else is possible? And we negotiated me a pool noodle. Because the pool noodle would pull me back up to the top. And so would she. And, hey, there's a lifeguard over there. You are not going to die in the pool. You're not, we promise. I was like, you have a good point.
Well, we hadn't even talked about
you.
Maybe. We'll see. If you pull me up the first time, then maybe I'll test you. Till then, I don't know. And that's a really great thing, because we've talked about stepping outside of your comfort zone. We didn't even really talk about when someone else asks you to step outside your comfort zone.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Now, you stepped outside your comfort zone and said, I'm going to take swimming because I don't know how to swim and it kind of terrifies me a little bit. You stepped out.
Yes. Yes, I hired people to drag me kicking and screaming outside my comfort zone.
Right? But you made that decision to do that. You could have stayed. You could have been like my mother. My mother still doesn't know how to swim, and she's a tiny bit older than you. And by like 4 decades. And she still doesn't know how to swim. Never learned as a kid, and she still doesn't know how. If we're somewhere where there's a pool, like if we go on a vacation, she's in the shallow end where she at above water, and she's not super tall, so we're talking like at the very shallow end of the pool. She won't even go into the deeper with a floaty. That's not happening. And frankly, given everything at this point in time, that's probably good. That she currently wouldn't try that. But for you, what made you decide, I don't want to be Naomi's mom's age and still not know how to swim? What made you decide to step out of your comfort zone around that?
So this is really interesting. It's kind of how I make a lot of my decisions. I don't want to be my mother. I know. I need some more timeline. We'll get there. My fear of drowning is not mine. It's my mother's by osmosis.
Sure.
I made it to 37 and only nearly drowned once, and it was a hilarious moment of falling off of a floaty in the shallow end of a friend's pool, thrashing around on the bottom of the pool, and then having a voice in my head say, "It's only 3 feet of water, just stand up."
My God.
That was my drowning experience this lifetime. So
how old were you?
I was like 15, 16.
Oh my God, that's so funny. It's a really funny picture in my head. I'm sorry to be laughing at you because you are my friend, but that's some funny shit.
I was way taller than 3 feet, so,
right?
you know. And then I'm like raging at my friends who are on the side of the pool, completely ignoring me, drowning in the pool. And they're like, "Why are you even in there if you can't swim? Shut up."
Oh, well,
Rescue
you know,
me.
that is actually kind of a good question. So here you are a couple decades later.
And I am going to the beach, and I would like to survive swimming in the ocean.
Oh, okay.
And
the ocean is definitely different from the pool, so it's good that you're learning, so you start understanding. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to survive that experience.
Oh, my God. That's so funny. Most people, when they go to the ocean, it's like, oh, my God, I'm so excited. I just want to go enjoy the beach and playing in the waves. And Lila's like, I just want to survive that fucking thing.
I want to swim in the actual ocean and then come back out of the actual ocean.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
And also, I love being in the pool, so it's kind of absurd that I can't swim. Well, that I couldn't swim. I can swim now.
Yeah.
So here I am at like 37 years old, and I'm like, I love the pool. I'll be on the shallow foot. Not going beyond 4 feet.
Thrashing around in the 3 feet. So
yes.
What I love about that story, and other than the humor, is that it just shows that different things are outside of our comfort zone. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to learn to speak in front of an audience of 5,000. It can be as simple as I quit killing spiders with hairspray. Now, granted, most of the time I make my husband take them outside. I don't pick them up and take them outside because I still find them creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But to a degree, except for the weird flesh-colored one that was huge, that was on my car that I accidentally picked up in the desert, that one creeped me out. Most of the time, spiders don't freak me out anymore. But trust me, it was way outside my comfort zone to pick one up and take it outside the first time I did. Broke a sweat and everything. So different things are outside my comfort zone than are outside your comfort zone. And while it's great when we have people like our swim instructors say, "Okay, jump in the deep end, Lord. Jump in the deep end," and we're like, "Oh, hell no, haha, you're funny, I know I paid you," but no. And sometimes my clients do that because I will push them to step outside their comfort zone, and sometimes they will and sometimes they won't. And then we get to negotiate like what you did. But sometimes it's ourselves telling us to step outside the comfort zone. Okay, go to this networking thing, even though I'm afraid to talk to people. Okay, I'm going to go skydiving, even though I'm about to wet my pants. Whatever it is. Sometimes we talk ourselves into stepping outside our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have people who are like, well, I don't know why you're making that a big deal. That's not hard. Like speaking in front of people. I don't know why people have such an... Now, let me preface this with, I actually have a tremendous amount of compassion for people who have a hard time speaking in front of groups of people. That being said, I also have a challenge understanding what that's like for them, because I've been getting in trouble for talking since I was in kindergarten. I've been in plays. I've taught a yoga class with almost 50 people in it. That's way too big for a yoga class, by the way. I never want to have to wear a headset when I'm teaching yoga. There's just something that feels weird about that to me. I've spoken at women's conferences to rooms full of women. I'm a trained trainer of NLP. I am a training director with BNI. So there's, for me, that's not outside my comfort zone. So I could look at somebody who's like, I'm really afraid to talk, and be like, that's not stepping outside your comfort zone. You need to go bigger. Really? Water's not scary. Lila, you shouldn't be afraid to jump in the deep end. Sure. That's not outside your comfort zone. You need to go bigger. Really?
No.
No?
No.
So I bring these things up. Go ahead.
I was going to say everybody's comfort zone is going to be different. Everyone's, edges are going to be different.
Yeah, I like the edges conversation because sometimes I toe the edge a little bit, but I'm afraid to put my toe over that edge. And it's to remind us that if somebody else is judging our comfort zone as, well, I don't know why that was such a big deal to you. You know what? Bless them and send them on their way. I'd encourage you to refrain from taking that on for yourself, because you are the one who knows what your comfort zone is and isn't. You know what frightens you. You know what scares you a little bit and what just makes you want to pee your pants scared. So their judgment is theirs. It does not have to be yours. In that same vein, there have been times I've seen people and it's just like, yeah, they're talking about that stepping outside their comfort zone. That's really, they could have gone bigger. Well, I get to choose to keep my judgy pants to myself. Or maybe just not even be so judgy about it. And remembering that everybody has their own edge.
Absolutely.
So you get to choose whether you go big or you go small.
I like going small. It's my favorite. It really is.
Some days it's micro mini for me, and some days it's great big huge leaps. It just depends for me. Why do you like baby
think about a leap?
Well, even leaping is subjective, right?
Right. I learned how to ride my bike sitting on it in my living room, holding on to my front door's doorknob to teach myself balance.
Okay. That's
as like a child. So my pain tolerance is fairly low. We all have like risk tolerances and pain tolerances. My 13-year-old had double perforated eardrums as a toddler, and I did not know that he had an ear infection until his ears were bleeding. His pain tolerance, super high. My pain tolerance, super low. So if this thing is going to cause me pain, I'm going to do my best to experience as little pain as humanly possible with that thing.
So it might be micro mini steps in that instance.
Yes.
It's so brilliant, though, teaching yourself balance first in your living room with your bike. How freaking
Because falling
smart
off
is
of
that?
my bike on the street was not interesting. Sounded like the worst idea in the world.
That's funny.
But falling against the door a couple times.
Tolerable.
Splinters have never killed anybody.
Pretty sure that's not quite true, but okay.
Again, threshold.
But we get your point.
Got their edges. Yeah,
for sure.
So that's why baby steps are my friend.
Well, and it's funny because I know that about you, and I know you did some of that in swimming, which is why you negotiated certain things. I also have known you to be somebody who also takes big leaps in what I would see stepping out of your comfort zone. But maybe for you, it wasn't actually outside your comfort zone, or at least not identified as such. When you tell me stories about how it's like, well, when I moved from Memphis, or when there's a lot of things where I'm like, oh my God, this is a big thing you just did. And you're
okay,
like,
maybe.
I just did what I had to do. So that's one of those things where it may not have been a step outside your comfort zone for you. I identify it as, wow, that seemed like a huge leap. And maybe it was and you didn't acknowledge it, or maybe if it were me having to do that, it would feel like a step outside of the comfort zone. And for you, it's normal. Just like for me picking up a microphone, normal, you know?
Mm-hmm. I see your point.
So I see you as being a more of a leaper. Like when you started the year of Ask, not the year we did, but the year before that you did.
Yeah, that was a leap. It didn't feel like a leap at the time.
Well, and I could see where it was a combination of both, because every week, for those of you who didn't follow Lila back then, she did a year where she was really working to push her edges and grow that comfort zone. And so she did a year of Ask, where you were doing it like every day, right?
Every day I asked someone for something. Bonus points if it made me uncomfortable.
And some of those things were as simple as, could you get the door for me? So it wasn't like, can I have a car? Can I have a house? Can I have some, it was simple things that most of us, sometimes it was simple things that most of us just do ourselves. Could you hand me that? Could you open the door? Hey, could you? Because most of us just go about our day and just open the door ourselves, even though we're juggling 15 bags and, the eggs are balancing precariously on top. We just do these things without asking. And when I watched you doing that, it was like, that's a huge leap out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. It was. Because my story was, it's okay, I have single mom arms. Like, I can carry all 39 of these bags at one time. Because that's normal. And I wanted to stop doing that and refuse the support that was available to me. The funniest thing, though, is the hard things for me to ask for seem the most absurd to my rational brain. I'm in the store. I'm paying for a thing. They don't give me a bag to put the thing in. I go to ask for the bag, and my brain tells my mouth not to do it, and so it comes out like, can I please have a bag? And now my heart's beating, pounding out of my chest. And I'm like, it's a bag. You paid for stuff. What is happening? The lady in front of me puts all her food on. Yeah, go ahead.
If you ever hear us do that, can I have a bag? You'll know why.
You get the reference, yes. The lady in front of me puts all of her food on the conveyor belt at the grocery store, and I go to ask her to hand me the divider, and it's the same thing. I speak very articulate English most of the time, except for that moment. So, yeah.
But that project was a huge leap. Now, you might say that you baby stepped some of those things. Some of the things you asked for might have been baby steps, not big leaps. But the whole project itself was a big leap. And
And then I told the world I was doing it.
Right? Yeah, she outed
so that I wouldn't wuss out.
Right? And yet I have another friend who she unabashedly asks for whatever it is she wants. It doesn't dawn on her, like, whether it's, oh, you shouldn't do that. Some of my Midwest upbringing comes up, and in the back of my mind I hear this, you shouldn't ask for that. Oh, that's, no, that's not socially acceptable to ask for that. That will show up for me. She doesn't have any of those conversations in her head. She needs to borrow $100. She'll be like, hey, can I borrow $100? She needs a ride to Albuquerque. She'll be like, can I get a ride to Albuquerque? Hey, I mean, it's, and at first it was a little, jarring's not the right word. It was just a little discombobulating because I'm not accustomed to people just, and she was not offended if you said no. Hey, can I borrow $100? Would have been the same thing as, hey, can you call me Tuesday? It had the same weight for her. It was like she didn't have expectations of the outcome, and that's a whole different conversation. But she was fine with a yes or no. So for her, a year of ask wouldn't be outside their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. For you, it was, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. Now, what were some of the things, were there tools that you used, things that you did? What can people do if they're like, I want to do something that's outside my comfort zone, whether it's a baby step or a big leap, that will help them to, like you said, you did it publicly so you wouldn't wuss out, mm-hmm. to follow through despite whatever conversations going on in their head, despite fear, despite whatever.
Remember to breathe.
Super huge.
And for someone who doesn't tend to hold their breath when they are feeling anxious or doing something new, you're probably rolling your eyes right now, but that's really a thing, especially for me. I'm not always in and present in and with my body, which is probably why I have these thoughts playing in the back of my head that I'm not aware of. But if I stop long enough to breathe, then the fear dissipates, first of all. But also it gives me the space to have the awareness of the thought. And then I can have a conversation with my crazy. Or then I can just ignore my crazy. I can be like, oh, you're making absolutely no sense. You're just reptile brain gone wild. Okay, got it. And that can be enough for me to then move forward and do the thing.
Yeah. Breathing is good. Oxygen is an amazing balancer. And breathe deep if you can when you do that. Breathing is good. I like the public outing that you did with it. It was a great project, and it was great. I think it was great for people to follow. If whatever you're diving into isn't something that you feel is something you want to put out publicly, or you're not ready to do that, or you feel like, oh gosh, but people would just think, why are you posting that? That's dumb. And you've got a bunch of chatter about that. You can always out yourself to someone, because sometimes accountability, but also having a cheering section. Because now I know this isn't true about Lila, but we'll pretend. If Lila was going to come to me and say, hey, I have to lead this bars class and I'm a little nervous.
I will be nervous the first time I teach a bars class, just FYI.
Okay, great. Okay. So she might come to me and say, hey, I'm going to do this. It's outside my comfort zone. I'm teaching my very first one. I'm going to be able to step in and like coaches, you got this. You know your plays. You know, that whole, picture a football coach pacing back and forth in the locker room, pumping up the team. So there's part of the pumping up factor. Plus, if you're telling somebody who's in your corner, you also have the accountability factor that Lila used the whole public forum as a way to not wuss out. You have the accountability factor. Somebody's going to be like, hey, how was it teaching your first class? How was it going to your first networking thing? How was it when you? And most of us don't want to let somebody else down. We don't want to have to tell somebody else, oh, I flaked on it. So we follow through. But it's also to help them have somebody in your corner cheering you on when you feel like you're about to pee your pants. So having support, whether it's a biz bestie, a mentor, a coach, a mastermind, your community, your family, whatever that is for you, your BFF, let somebody know.
Yeah.
It's amazing what can open up for you when you're vulnerable enough to say, I'm doing this thing and it scares me a little bit, but I'm doing it anyway.
That's pretty amazing.
Are there any other tools you want to share with people on what to do when you're thinking you might kind of maybe sort of want to step outside your comfort zone, but you're just freaking out a little?
Find the tiniest step. If you're freaking out into like paralysis, find the tiniest comfortable step. You know what? I'm thinking for me anyway, that it's not as much getting outside of my comfort zone as it is like moving. Like moving my comfort zone over a little bit into what it is that I would like to create.
Ooh.
So moving from someone who is accustomed to sharing space with other people into someone who lives in my own space with my kiddos, it was outside of my normal. It was actually like very uncomfortable living with other people, but it was outside of my normal to, have my own bills and blah, blah, blah without a partner, because I'd been married before I couch surfed with children. Don't recommend it. And for me, it was getting comfortable with the reality that I can support my kiddos. And then it was being comfortable with the reality of increasing my income. So for me, I guess I get to the end of this conversation and I'm like, I don't think I ever get out of my comfort zone. I think I just move it.
Well, isn't that kind of what getting outside your comfort zone is, though? We're pushing the edge and the boundary of our comfort zone out. We're moving that edge.
Yeah.
We call it stepping out, but really what we're doing is we're pushing. All I picture is a pizza crust, and the guy, and he's pulling it and pulling it and pulling it, and then he spins it, and it gets wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. That's kind of what we're doing. We're not really stepping over our comfort zone line and walking away. We're actually dragging that boundary with us, or we're pushing the boundary from inside. We're changing the landscape of what our norm is.
I love it.
And I like your idea of taking, because for a lot of us, sometimes once we get going, have you ever had something that you're certain is going to cause you to hyperventilate and die from excess oxygen if you do it? And you spend so much time thinking about it and freaking yourself out about it, and then when you do it, you're like, oh, that really wasn't so bad. Or maybe it's just me who's ever done that.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely.
Because when you said sometimes it's the moving, I know you were talking about it's moving your comfort zone. For me, it's that first step. Once I get into it, it might be scary, but not nearly as scary as before I started when I talked it up big in my head, which is why I love that you say, find one tiny thing you can do and do that. Because that will build, if you can build that evidence for yourself that you're not going to die, if you build that evidence for yourself that, okay, I can do this thing, then you can take a slightly bigger step. And if you want to baby step it all the way through, fantastic. Sometimes for me, just that one step is like, oh, okay, and then I'm willing to take a bigger step. It depends on the thing.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Depends on the thing. Sometimes it depends on where I happen to be at. You know, in my own, in my head, in my world. Sometimes in my cycle makes a difference. So give yourself the grace and the space to take the steps and push that edge in a way that works for you. So that whether you call it getting outside your comfort zone, whether it's moving your comfort zone into a new normal, creating a new landscape for your life, whatever you want to call it, it's possible. And it can be fun.
It can be fun. If you're a little crazy like me.
Well, and sometimes the process isn't always the funnest. There were weeks when you were on your Year of Ask journey that not so much the funnest.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have a bag? And yet, what was available to you on the other side? What did you learn? What did you grow from? What have you experienced now because you were willing to do that activity?
That's another call. But yeah.
Yeah. But that's
So
the exciting part. So whether it's I'm scared to death of the water and I'm going to take swim lessons, whether it's, oh my God, I hate networking, but I know I need to do it for my business. Give me a mic and let me speak in front of big groups. I'm fine. Make me go network. Oh, for the love of all things holy. Whatever it is for you, whatever that comfort zone is. Gosh, I really want to be on Dancing with the Stars, but I'm scared to death. Go fill out the, I almost said fucking, application. Whatever that is, find a local competition. I don't know. It can be scary, but man, on the other side, what will you have learned? What will you have experienced? What will be the new landscape of your new comfort zone? That's what's so cool.
And I think focusing on that is how you can get yourself there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
this is a very long call. Thank you guys for hanging in there.
It has been, but I think all of this was juicy stuff that needed to be tied all together. So yeah, thanks for hanging in there.
I always
if you
think
have
our conversations are juicy.
Well, I do too. They're juicy conversations that lead to powerful transformation. And on that note, if something came up for you in this call where you're like, I've been scared too, X, Y, and Z, and you want to pop it in there for that cheerleading and accountability, pop a comment in there. If some aha came up that you want to share, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
And that sounds complete. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye.